So hey Wes, I have a question for you that comes up quite a bit in the world of AWS, which is, during a customer's journey to the cloud, during a migration, there can be some question marks in people's minds about what do they do with their existing security tool sets, infrastructure in their on-premises world?
Okay.
How does that work their way into the full migration story? Do you have any thoughts on this?
We do. We see it quite often as a service provider who has an entire service built on top of AWS. The traditional, I would say, area where we see people fail is lifting and shifting from on-prem directly to the cloud. Trying to duplicate what has been an industry standard for 2 decades in a data center inside of a cloud service provider. So firewalls and load balancers and DNS and WAF. And individuals will spend massive amounts of time trying to duplicate that instead of using the native services that are part of the cloud service provider that really allow them to scale, get efficiencies, and at the end of the day are actually more cost effective, cost efficient, versus trying to duplicate something that you would with the common providers out there.
Excellent stance on that, Wes. And I mean, but you can see how it'd be kind of the go-to knee-jerk reaction,
it is.
right? I mean,
everybody wants to.
It's familiar.
I've got these firewalls here. I should have them there.
Right.
Not to say that you still couldn't partner with vendors like that. We have great relationships with vendors that operate in that space. But the native services are really the best way to get the value add out of migrating to the cloud.
And do you have any, real-world example or advice without naming names here, maybe, right?
Yeah,
But
we don't have to name names.
Some kind of example that might give the audience an idea.
I would say the big one is probably egress, ingress, firewalls, WAF, IPS, IDS. There's, let's take Palo Alto, a amazing cybersecurity company. We've all got great relationships with them. A lot of individuals will try to take and duplicate, 1,200 PAs that they have in their data centers, which are super valid in those data centers, and put them inside of AWS, where you're not going to get the same level, the same visibility. You're going to introduce complexities, and especially when it comes to throughput and bandwidth, like using the native services that are part of AWS, the way that they were designed, is really how you're going to scale, and it's going to set you up to not only migrate to the cloud, but adopt the cloud, re-platform your apps, redesign your apps, get rid of some of the monolithic, static things that you're moving over from an AMI perspective, a database perspective, and set you up to adopt SaaS, that's the core competency of moving to the cloud.
Right. And suppose, this happens occasionally too, right? Suppose someone does understand the value of not just replicating their data center into AWS, right? But leveraging native services, networking, security services, identity services. But suppose their staff may not be so familiar with these native capabilities, right? So there's potentially a learning curve, maybe in initially deploying the native capabilities, and then, in my world, particularly in the managed security space, managing those native tools afterwards, and also the integrations with some of those third-party products like you spoke about.
Okay.
You have a viewpoint there?
I think Amazon does a great job of documentation. The white papers you guys roll out are probably some of the best in the industry that are out there, but that's to get up and running. That's not to mature, that's not to scale, that's not to get to a point where you are really at the efficiency and the optimization levels that you want to be. That's where third-party service providers come in, especially when we want to talk about cybersecurity. People struggle in the pure lift and shift to the cloud, much less how do we get the logs, how do we get the visibility, how do we do incident response, how do we do containment. Partnering with the service provider that's not just hey, we're going to take your logs, but a service provider that's going to recommend these are the services you should have that can help you, kind of transfer your cyber risk to business risk, as in, what are you doing in the cloud? And is that e-commerce, is that manufacturing, are you simply becoming a hosting provider? Working with someone who has that expertise, who has automation to help you speed up enabling some of those services, getting some of that visibility, that's really going to be your fastest route to what we would call time to value.
Awesome. And you said a couple keywords that really kind of trigger my memory, right? That, for one, we have like a cliche term we like to say that cloud is not just another log source.
Oh, it is not.
I love how you said
yes, it's an ecosystem.
It's not just another cloud. Yeah, that's a lot of folks will say just point your cloud logs to a SIEM. Or call it a day.
One of many of things that are out there. Yeah, it is not. It's an entire ecosystem. It could become your identity solution. We personally don't do anything on-prem. We're really good. We have a great partnership with Okta. They're one of the key players that are out there from a user perspective. All of our actual services and resources use, AWS IAM roles, IAM users, identities. Like, there is a entire way that you handle identities, AuthX and AuthZ, inside of the cloud versus your traditional on-prem data center. And understanding that that's not just a new log source, but that's a new mechanism to expose services externally, provide access in a programmatic manner. It's complex. Like the cloud is complex, and I don't know that anyone wants to be naive and say that it's not, but a lot of people do.
I can reflect and understand those statements too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the migration projects can be of totally varying scopes, right? The
Massive. Yeah.
workloads types matter. The industry vertical that the business may be operating in matters for regulatory and compliance reasons. That can also kind of expand the scope, so to say, right, of the migration project. Kind of one of the other things you mentioned was related to, say, ongoing management, right? So
Yeah.
teams inside
Yeah.
an existing business, IT security teams, development teams, they know how their on-premises environment works, very comfortable with it. Now there's a transformation and migration project coming.
There is.
Who's going to manage that once it's there? So maybe
It's
they
there.
get some help from a third-party provider, maybe it's Deepwatch,
Yeah,
right, for
yeah.
example, to get them there.
Yeah.
What happens after they're there? Is there a help to go manage and respond to the different
That's
kinds of alerts coming up?
I think that's where there's a lot of marketing and there's fluff of what one organization does versus another, but it's really about the partnership and understanding that your journey to the cloud is never over. It's not a what, we lift and shifted, we rewrote this is here, we're done, let's check the checkbox, we're in the cloud. Especially when you're looking at an organization like AWS, who I think it's every 2 weeks new features come out, new API endpoints, new functions, like new capabilities to take advantage of. And you really need a service provider that has a full adoption and management lifecycle. What is new? What's going? Where are you at right now versus where do you want to be 12 months from now?
Yeah.
And that is part of, that's what we do. That's the Deepwatch lifecycle. That's the relationship. That's the partnership. That's not you have a third party that's going to help you check a checkbox and they're going to walk away and it's billable hours. It is a partnership, and it's understanding the business, the value that they're trying to generate and create, whether that's revenue or brand reputation, and how do you leverage the cloud to help you get there faster in a more efficient manner.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Wes. Great thoughts for you to share with everyone here. Thank you for that. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. This has been fantastic.
If you want to learn more, head to aws.amazon.com/MSSP. Also check out the Deepwatch Marketplace listing.